Welcome back, white whale hunters. Got a few minutes. Gonna stop by a local lake and toss around some finesse baits. Had a pretty severe snowstorm come through last night. Dumped a few inches. First major snow of the year, a few months early. So I'm anticipating that these bass are going to be in a negative mood. Don't really have a ton of luck catching bass here from the bank. It's more of an offshore, bite. It's an old rock quarry pond, but got a Ned rig, gonna toss that around. Got a jerkbait, gonna toss that around, and gonna toss around a jig. Let's see what happens. Come on, let's go. Winter has arrived. In case anybody wasn't sure what season we were fishing. As you can tell by the snow and the crunch of ice under my feet. But there's no ice in the water. What does that mean? That means we fish. Tossing around a Strike King jerkbait in a natural shad color. Not a confidence bait for me by any means. Didn't grow up fishing jerkbaits. Definitely, I think of it as a cold water bait. Going to be giving it some long pauses. Don't have a ton of time, but we'll see if we can't make something happen. It'd be nice if I could get a fish today, considering I'm having knee surgery tomorrow. Gonna be laid up. Like I told you guys in the last video, season is coming to an end. Jerk, make sure you've got plenty of slack in your line. That way you're not pulling your bait, you're just causing it to dart side to side. Jerk bait is not a confidence bait for me. That's why I'm throwing it. It is cold. 17 degrees outside right now. Hands are getting numb already. Another important thing when you're fishing a jerkbait, snap your line and immediately bring your rod tip back to its position. That way your line can rebound. If you snap it and you hold your rod up, you're potentially not letting that bait, you're causing that bait to drift. So when you pop it, you want to pop it and bring it right back down. So, first jerkbait fish in a long time, maybe ever. Feels good, that's for sure. Decent little dude. Was not expecting to get this guy on a jerkbait today, but surprise, surprise. Get him back in the water. Thanks a lot, homie. Yeah. Snow on the ground. No leaves on the trees. Winter is here. And I just got a jerkbait fish. Hey everyone, welcome back. Thanks for watching. I appreciate you guys more than you know. I'm gonna sit here and talk to you a little bit about jerkbaits and what I know about them. In a nutshell, I haven't been throwing jerkbaits for very long, maybe a year, and I don't throw them on a regular basis unless the waters are pretty cold. And the reason I do this is because I've been told this is the best time to throw jerkbaits by fishermen that are much better and much wiser than I am. I've kind of realized that jerkbaits are a huge part of the bass fishing industry. And I want to try and be the most rounded angler that I can possibly be. So I've got to be able to throw and understand the jerkbait game. I've got all my jerkbaits laid out here on the table, probably 20 of them. So I think I've caught bass on like 3 of them. But I continue to try and find out what's going to work for me in this area. I think the very first jerkbait I ever bought was this jerkbait, which is what you saw me catch the bass on earlier. This is a Strike King KVD 200 size jerkbait. I don't even think I've caught a dozen bass on this jerkbait. Like I said, I don't throw it very often. But out of all of these, this guy and this guy are my confidence baits here in the Midwest. I never threw jerkbaits in Florida. The way that my brain works, I think a jerkbait is great in the wintertime, specifically a suspending jerkbait. Why? Because bass group up and bass get lethargic and inactive because of the cold water temperatures. A bass's number one priority in life is to stay alive, preservation of life. And in the winter, they are not very active because of the temperature. They don't eat as much, and they have to conserve as much energy as possible. And the beauty of a suspending jerkbait is if you find the fish, find where the bass are, you can put that lure in front of that bass's face for 5 seconds or 520 seconds, and hopefully elicit a reaction strike, because that's what a jerkbait does. It elicits, it creates the bass to lash out to something that they feel may possibly be getting away from them, or possibly is injured and dying and is in front of them. At least that's the way that my brain thinks about it. I have baits here that are suspending, are slow sinking, and slow rising. I have not had very good luck with the slow rising baits or the slow sinking baits. I've had my best luck with the baits that stop and literally suspend in front of those fish. My best baits are probably the IU color. This has done really, really well for me in Michigan, specifically with smallmouth bass. I fish a couple of ponds in Southwest Michigan, or lakes in Southwest Michigan, and this has worked well for me here in Indiana on lakes that have shad and in lakes that don't have shad. This has also been a good one for me. This is a Lucky Craft pointer, and then the KVDs. It's impossible for me to tell you which is the best jerkbait for you to buy. Because there's way too many factors that are involved with water clarity and water depth and forage base. You've just got to start thinking about what your bass are, the bass in your area are feeding on, and try and match that hatch. And there's 2 trains of thought on that: match the hatch or go completely the opposite direction. You know, maybe you're fishing, maybe you've got IUs in your lake and they are this size and this color. and you could maybe throw this all day and nothing would happen. And maybe you grab something like this that's chartreuse and purple, or something like this, chartreuse and black back, and maybe they just destroy it all day long. And those are the two thoughts: match the hatch or go completely different. From what I've learned in the short time that I've been throwing these, as far as color selections, there are some recommendations on what to do. Have something that's chromy or reflective, right? Have something that's ghosty or translucent for clear water. Have something that is bright, you know, chartreuse and purple or bone. And then you can also have something that's very natural based on forage base, like minnows or perch or bluegill or something along those lines. As far as gear goes, I throw this either on like medium bait casting tackle with 12 to 15 pound test, or I would throw this on spinning gear, depending on what I'm throwing. If I'm gonna throw a small bait, like a little husky jerk like this, I'm gonna throw that on spinning gear, you know, 15 pound braid to a fluorocarbon or a monofilament leader. If I'm gonna throw something bigger, then I'm gonna throw that on medium bait casting tackle. I really like baits that have a weight transfer system in them because they allow me to cast farther. And a weight transfer system is a ball bearing that's inside that as you cast, it moves from the front of the bait to the back of the bait. So it'll help rocket that cast out there. Baits like this, like these little husky jerks, they don't have that. So these baits aren't gonna cast very far. That's why you need to throw them on spinning tackle. As far as the rod action goes, it's recommended medium power, even medium light power, or moderate action. You want something that's got some tip. Number one, it's going to help you cast. Number two, it's going to help you with the action on that bait. And number three, it's going to help you keep those fish pinned. And I think the keeping the fish pinned is more relevant when you're talking about the action or the power of the rod, right? A medium power rod has got more bend in it, so it's going to be able to keep those fish hooked better, because it's not going to try and rip those hooks out of that fish's mouth. These are light wire hooks, you know. These are easy to bend out, and these are easy to pull from a fish's mouth. So medium action, or even if it's a medium heavy, if it's got a moderate action, there's going to be a more parabolic bend to that rod and help you keep those fish pinned. You want, the tip can be fast, but you want the rod to have a soft tip. It's going to help with casting. It's also going to help with not ripping those hooks out. And then as far as line goes, spinning gear, 15 to 20 pound braid to some sort of leader is recommended, at least in my eyes. And then if I'm throwing it on bait casting gear, as low as 8 or 10 pound test, probably as high as 15. If you're fishing, the thinner diameter line, keep in mind, the deeper you can get that bait. There's less resistance on that line in the water because of its thinner diameter. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell, the little bit that I know. If you guys have been throwing jerk baits for longer than I have, a lot of you probably have, I would love your input. Love your feedback, love your perspective. Please drop some comments down below. Help me learn. If you're new to jerk baits and I've helped you learn, fantastic. That's what this is all about. Thanks for watching. Hope you guys are out there bending some rods and stretching some lines. I was driving around today. Ponds are iced up. It's not even November 15th. Winter is here very, very early this year. Hopefully we can get a couple of warm snaps so I can get a little bit more time out on the water. Hopefully you guys are. Thanks again for watching. Tight lines. God bless. See ya.